Max here from Cakes by Max. Today I'm doing a little video on the tools that I use on a day-to-day basis to make the majority of the cakes that I make. When you're first setting out, it is a bit of a minefield. You kind of buy everything and anything thinking that you need it and then only use 10% of it or so. So I thought it'd be useful to do a little video on what you actually need day to day most of the time. So in order to make the lovely cakes that we make, we need a cake, and in order to have a cake we need some cake tins. So I have two sets of each, set of square ones, so I have two of each so that I can put two in the oven at the same time. And I also have two sets of the round cake tins, and I've opted for the fruit cake tins because I find I can make any of the cakes in these tins, whether it be carrot cake, fruit cake, lemon cake, chocolate cake, vanilla, whatever flavour, all done in these tins and they're fine. So then you need a decent rolling pin. So I like this wooden one, and the reason I like it is it's big enough and it's a nice texture, and I can rub in the icing sugar all over it, and that prevents the fondant from sticking and rolling back onto itself when you're rolling it out. So I tend to use that for most of my larger cakes. And then I also have a smaller one for when I'm rolling out a small piece of fondant or a modelling paste, you know, and I tend to use this one all the time. I like the texture of this, it's almost like a marble, and it stays cold, so when you're rolling out the fondant or the modelling paste it gives you a nice finish, I feel. So next is tools. Now there are a lot of tools out there that you can buy, and I've got quite a lot, but in all honesty the ones that I use on most cakes are these four here. So I've got a balling tool. So this balling tool has two different size balls on the end, and I use it for you know, thinning down the edges of petals, eye sockets, a lot of modelling uses this is for. And I also have the stitching tool. Don't know if you can see that, but that's a stitching tool. I use it for trousers, I use it on handbags when I'm making handbag stitching, and it's got a couple of different stitches on the end. And then the next tool that I use a lot is, we call it a boning tool. So you can use that for making cheekbones, making sockets, various kind of modelling, little dents and bumps and things like that. Use those with the various sizes. And then this one has a few names. People call it a Dresden Tool or a veining tool. I use that almost on every cake I make for some reason or another. It may be that I just want to move a petal out of the way, or I want to reposition something but I don't want to touch it, and this is ideal. And again, you can make things like eye sockets, lots of different uses for this tool. And when you're purchasing these tools, you can spend a lot or spend a little, it doesn't really matter. I tend to, for me, if I need something more precise and precision, things like this, I will spend a little bit more, and I'll use the branded ones. So these are like both Wilton, so they are top brands, and I paid more for them. And then these ones are just a cheap everyday set that I bought. I didn't pay very much at all, but I probably use them just as much, if not more, as the more expensive ones. So it's up to you what you want to do in that respect. And then you need a lot of cutting out. There's loads of cutting out that you do, so a variety of a few knives is good. So I use that for the longer pieces of fondant that I just need one slice or something. I need that for the slightly more detailed work or around the edge of a cake, and then I use that, it's an Exacto knife, and I use that for more intricate detailed work. So for example, I made a football cake the other day and I needed to cut out the football logo, so I used the Exacto Knife for that and it did a great job. And then you've got your palette knives, so you may have rolled out some fondant or modelling paste and it's sticking to the board. Well, you just can release it from the board with these. Also use them for if you're picking something up and putting it on the cake, makes it so much easier. And there's various sizes for various size things that you may be putting on the cake, like flowers. I use this a lot. It's the pizza cutter, and I use that as much as I can for the edge of the cakes. So if I'm going around the edge of the cake, it just makes it so much easier and gives a really nice clean finish. You can't use it on every cake, but you can use it quite a lot. And then a good set of scissors, so you may be trimming the fondant with the scissors or cutting out a template. So a couple of pairs of scissors that are decent is always good. And then if you're doing painting, you'll find that at some stage you will have to do painting on cakes. Some good quality brushes is always good. I tend to go for the ones that go roundy at the end and don't have any splays coming off. If you're doing an eyebrow, for example, if you paint it on and there's a spray, you may get an extra line on your eyebrow that you don't want, that you then have to take off. Now if that does happen and you do need to take it off, I use a pipette a lot for distributing vodka. So a lot of the times you only ever need like a drop or 2 drops, or you may be mixing it with some luster dust to make a colour. You only ever need a little bit, and it's really difficult to get just a small bit. So if you just get your pipette, you only need a drop because you're cleaning something off of a cake or something, a couple of drops, and then you're not wasting it because it's expensive. Then when you are colouring fondants, I'd say use gloves. These are food safe gloves. I say use gloves because a lot of the times I do, and I end up with colouring all over my hands and it doesn't look very nice. So just remember, if you buy some of them, try and use them whenever possible. And I have this, so if I'm making some letters or blossoms or something like that to put on a cake, sometimes they'll be sticking to the board or you need them to dry out pretty quick. And this is Dab A Dust. It's by FMM, and you just fill it with corn flour. It's got a little screw lid. You fill it with corn flour, put the lid on, and then you can just dab it wherever you're working, and it stops them from sticking. And I keep it in here because it is a bit powdery. Another useful thing that I like is the sugar shake. So I like the one with the handle because I find I can easily get hold of it when I'm rolling out, and I can sprinkle quite quickly, so that's really useful. I also use, while I am rolling out, measuring tools, so ruler. If you're only doing a small piece of fondant, you may just want to measure it in inches if you only need 10 inch, for example. If you're doing a bigger piece of fondant and it's, for example, an 8-inch cake, 3-inch high, you know you need 15-inch, you just measure 15-inch while you're rolling out, and then once you've got that, it's just pop it on the cake. And this one I use for around the circumference of the cake, so you may be putting a belt around or something like that and you need to measure how long it needs to be. That's ideal for that. And then moving on to letters, there's lots of letters out there. Now again, I would suggest for letters, pick a branded one like the FMM, the PME, Wilton, something like that. I do tend to find they work the best, and the letters will come out of the carriages quite easily. So that's there, a funky style of letter. And then you've got your straighter, thinner letter. And then you have these, which are individual cutters, used more for children's cakes and things. And when you are painting on cakes, if you've got the right brushes, you also need the paint pallets. So I use these because they're not too big, and you often find you only need a little bit of colour anyway, so if you're adding a little bit of vodka and a little bit of powder to colour some eyes or something like that, you only need that, and sometimes you will need several colours all at the same time, so these are ideal. I use them all the time when I'm painting. I also use a turntable pretty much every cake that I do. So this black here is an anti-slip, so when you put your cake board on it's not going to go falling off, and I use it for when I'm working on a cake, or I use it for the cake boards as well. So when I'm putting the ribbon edge all the way around the cake board, I like it because it's got the space here and I can gauge where I'm putting my ribbon edge. So that's another thing that I use all the time. And then sponges, you'll find that if you are modelling things, they often need to dry out, so I use a variety of sponges. An example of that is, at the moment I'm working on a Minecraft cake and I've made some TNT, and I needed them to dry out. I've also got Enderman. So he's going on the Minecraft cake and he's drying out nicely on the sponges. And I've also got Steve, he's going on the cake as well. So really useful to have the sponges for drying out. And then last but not least, you will find there's loads and loads and loads of cutters that you can buy, and I find these are the main ones that I use on most cakes if I'm using cutters. So I'll just put them on here. So you've got your blossoms. Again, I would say go for the branded ones just to get a better cut when you're cutting them out. And the spring-loaded ones are good because if you cut your flower and then you just want to pop it on your cake like that, you can do. Or if you just want them to release easier, you can do. And they also put a little centre piece on your flower for you. Circles, variety of circles, big ones, small ones, spring-loaded ones. Again, use these a lot for modelling and cake decorating. And then I would say love hearts is the next thing that I use the most of for cakes. They are quite popular, and that's just a nice little set. I like them because they've got the thin edge and they cut them nice and clean. And there's also the metal ones. You can buy a variety, lots of different hearts to buy. And that's everything. So I do hope you found this video useful and helpful, and thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.